So welcome back to RPMbassy. Just want to say a massive thank you to all the people that have been subscribing and watching our videos and liking our videos. Myself and Mark have great enjoyment doing these. So coming back to our top 20, we are now on number 9. And to start this one off, I'm going to hand over to Mark, who's going to start this one off.
Welcome back. So, number 9, we're bringing it up in terms of the eras. A lot of the stuff I had last time around was a little bit older. This whole set, a lot newer. So, number 9 is Birth of a New Day by 2814. So, this is a duo. Two guys, one of them operates under Telepath, and the other operates under HKE or Hong Kong Express, I believe. Both sort of work together under the record label Dream Catalogue. And essentially all of that label is like vaporwave and...
What is vaporwave? I've heard of vaporwave.
So yeah, that's probably something to explain actually. So vaporwave is overall like a name for an aesthetic style. So lots of kind of 80s and 90s like weird VHS kind of looking influence. A lot of kind of like how like 90s Windows computers would look. A lot of fascination with dolphins. Bit weird.
Oh, nice.
So like if you're familiar with C-punk, very similar, but like if you put C-punk in an office, then that would kind of be where it would work. But yeah, it's kind of like a visual aesthetic, but also has become like known as like an audio aesthetic as well. 99% of it is basically just taking samples illegally and like slowing them down, like slowing the shit out of them, and
unrecognisable.
Just basically doing that with them.
Twin.
I mean, even then, there's some stuff where it is like you can literally just go like, right, that is that song, that's that Tears for Fears song, or what have you, and all they've done is gone, yeah, let's just do that in halftime. And that's the whole song, and then they just add a bit of reverb and call it good. But there are some artists that actually try. 2814 is one of those artists, and both Telepath and HKE in their own right, like their own work is like really, really well thought out. Telepath especially, like the stuff that he's made, it's very evocative of that aesthetic style, but still kind of steps back a little bit. It's quite unique. And this isn't really... I mean, visually, it's got kind of like a bit of a vaporwave aesthetic. There's also like that kind of dream punk kind of vibe and stuff like that. The audio does sound like the cover looks. Like, pretty much, that's the easiest way to describe it. Like, how that looks, how it feels, that's what it sounds like. It's got that kind of...
I mean, where would you find this stuff? Because, I mean, do you need to know what you're looking for? Or is there a particular site that you go to? Or
Bandcamp, basically.
Right, okay.
So Bandcamp is where 99% of this stuff lives. Nearly all of it is independent artists who are just releasing stuff, and for one, like I said, half of it is like illegally sampled stuff anyway, or they haven't gotten the license and the clearance to do it. But as I said, these guys are above board. Like, this is all legit. This is like an actual proper release.
Right.
And Dream Catalogue as a whole, as far as I'm aware, is, they're operating legally and doing all of their sampling as they're supposed to do. The sampling on this, as it is, a lot of it is kind of like field recordings anyway, so it's not like bits and pieces from songs and things like that. Good example of that is the song Distant Lovers, track 2. It's essentially just like a few synth lines over recordings of like train stations and stuff like that. I think there is something about that kind of vibe, just like that. It really kind of paints a picture of like a lonely night. Like, you're there in a train station, no one else is there, but you've still got like all the announcements and things going off. And that kind of feeling is what this album gives.
Because I love that kind of thing, and I sit down with the best intentions of listening to that and just like getting wrapped in. Before I know it, I've been sleeping for an hour. Not that it's boring, it's amazing stuff, but it's so kind of chilled out.
Yeah. There's not like a focal point to take away from the album, I don't think, which, that's entirely intentional. It's not to its detriment. And as I said, like, Bandcamp is the place to pick this sort of stuff up. I remember when I first kind of got into that sort of genre as a whole, like there was so much stuff available that it did almost kind of merge into one. But then you get bits and pieces like this where they do actually stand out. This, I believe, is like the second or third pressing of it.
Wow, so it's selling.
Like, this has been like a proper hot commodity, this album. I know the very first pressing was like a purple disc, which looked absolutely sick. This one's just on black vinyl, and it's still, you know, it's just nice to have. Like, I wanted it for the music. This is like properly like falls into the category of like an album that works best on vinyl, because it's kind of like got that lo-fi gritty vibe anyway, with like samples and like, you know, synths with a ton of effects on it. Like, pretty much the entire album has got a phaser running through the whole thing, to the point that they basically could have put it through the master track with a phaser on and called it good. Like, that's how much phaser is on here. But it really fits on vinyl because of that kind of like lo-fi sort of washy vibe.
I'm intrigued to see what the gatefold is inside. Ta-da! That's actually quite nice.
So, I mean, for anybody who's like overall not familiar with it in terms of how it sounds with regards to that kind of vaporwave dream punk kind of sound, as I said, it does sound how it looks. It's got a very kind of lonely, slightly cyberpunky vibe, but whereas like cyberpunk nowadays, a lot of people have that kind of like hard driving bassline Carpenter Brut kind of like idea in their head. Kind of take that and, you know, take out the drums, just have the synth and then slow it down, and that's where you get this kind of music.
So my number 9 is, as you probably kind of going through my top 20, it is I'm quite eclectic, and I was also a massive hip hop fan. The next record I chose, from far as I'm concerned, the best UK hip hop act ever. And the album I've chose is from a band called Hijack, a UK hip hop, come from South London. Released their first single, Star Wars, I think in about 89, I believe. They then released this album. They were picked up by Ice-T for their label, Syndicate Records, Rhyme Syndicate Records. Released this only in the UK, but not in America. It's one of the reasons why they left the label and we didn't hear much from after them. But this album is insane. Forget about your Ice-Ts, forget about all your Donald D's or your gangster rap. These guys were hard. I mean, even look at like the sleeve with their gas mask on and everything, and you know, track titles like The Bad Man Is Robin, The Syndicate Out of Jail, Hijack, The Terrorist Group. But also, this album was sampled left, right and centre. I could probably name you a couple of samples. Horns of Jericho, Prodigy. A couple of samples from Bad Man Is Robin. Star Wars has been sampled in quite a lot. And the band were made up from people like Comanche Sly, who, a bit of, I didn't know this, so I did a bit of research for the album, did the vocals on Do You Really Like It?
Oh,
so
nice.
he did the vocals on that, which is like, blew my mind, because Comanche Sly is just insane. You've also got people like DJ Supreme, you've got DJ Undercover, like he created that Hijack scratch, so he would do a scratch and actually vocally it's saying Hijack. It's brilliant. So this band, I've seen them live once in Brixton many years ago. I think I must have been like 18, and it was so hard. Their music's so hard. Every track is just up, you know, really high tempo. Using all these kind of like noises. You see later on when I talk about the Public Enemy album, they're quite similar. The kind of noises they kind of use, like the screeches. Very kind of it almost gets your heart going. And you know, you want to jump on the room and get aggressive with it. This music is it, and it's Hijack, Horns of Jericho, and it's really hard to find now because it's not in any kind of download stores. You can find a couple of their singles, but not the album. Have a look on Discogs. Definitely get this album. Now, this is the album that came out, but what happened years later? This is really hard to get. They created their own label called the Reservoir Records. Obviously ripping off the Reservoir Dogs, but they re-released this album, and this is double vinyl. You've got the whole album as it is, but there's a couple of tracks that were never on the album, and also a disc of all the instrumentals, which is like insane, because instrumentals. So if you fancy yourself a bit of Comanche Sly, all the instrumentals here. This is quite tough to get hold of. Horns of Jericho, instrumentals, and there's a couple of extra tracks on there. The extra tracks that are on here that never appeared on the album, they're just insane. I don't know why they didn't appear on this album. They only released a few singles. They had Style Wars, not Star Wars, which came out on Music of Life. Then they released Hold No Hostage, which is like an insane, like that beat on that is so aggressive. And then they released this album, and they were kind of doing a lot of touring in America, and they released a 12-inch over there called Daddy Rich, which got released over here. Did well over here, but not over there. And then they released the final single, Star Wars, like a redo, like a return to Star Wars, and then that was it for Hijack. Yeah, come back, Hijack. So Hijack, Horns of Jericho, my number 9. Check it out. The hardest hip hop you're ever going to hear. See you in the next one.